ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. Today I'm going to be paying tribute to an actor who just died recently by the name of James Van Der Beek. This man was most known for his role in Dawson's Creek as the titular character Dawson Leery and Johnny Moxon in one of my favorite movies of all time, Varsity Blues. I hope you guys appreciate what I have to say about this man. you know, I wasn't born in the 90s. I wasn't born in the 80s or anything like that. I was born in the 2000s. And I never really got to watch all the 90s sitcoms or the 80s sitcoms or all the 80s TV dramas or the 90s TV dramas or the 70s TV dramas, whatever. All right. You know, but as I've grown older and I've gotten to, do my own thing, whether it's have my own things and have my own technology, I've started to, see, you know, things of the past. And that's what I've grown accustomed to. When I was, a little boy, I was more used to, kids' TV shows and just modern things. But when the pandemic hit, I all of a sudden got used to all the old school 90s 2000s stuff. The first thing that really caught my attention was the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And I remember in 1 month of December we watched all 148 episodes of the Fresh Prince. And that's how I became enamored with Will Smith, who I honestly believe is my favorite actor of all time, or the greatest actor of all time. Come on. And started to fall in love with these characters like Ashley Banks or Carlton Banks and Uncle Phil, who kind of reminds me a lot of my dad. So, but one of the shows that was a part of the 90s was Dawson's Creek. Dawson's Creek lasted from 1993 to 2002, and it was a show that I was a little bit familiar with, but I wasn't like, I don't know, like a show that I would watch, because there was Fresh Prince, there was Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide, there was The Walking Dead, but like it wasn't shows that I binge watched like on my own, because like those shows that I just mentioned, they didn't last over 10 seasons. Fresh Prince lasted 6 seasons. Ned's Declassified lasted 3 seasons. Hell, even recent shows like Stranger Things and Wednesday, they've only lasted like a few seasons so far. Dawson's Creek lasted more than 6 seasons. So, and the cast on the show, had some heavy hitters. It had Michelle Williams, an Academy Award winning actress. It had Joshua Jackson, who was in The Mighty Ducks and The Skulls. And Katie Holmes, who was a well-renowned actress back in the heyday. But it also had someone who I honestly believe was undervalued as an actor, and that was James Van Der Beek. And James Van Der Beek proved in Dawson's Creek that he was, a teenage heartthrob, but also like, a talented actor in a teenage drama that honestly flies under the radar to this day because it came in the 90s. It came in a time where sitcoms were a huge deal, like Seinfeld, Friends, Family Matters, The Cosby Show, and all kinds of TV dramas, movies. So it just got like flown under the rug, thrown under the rug. But I started to notice James Van Der Beek a little bit more because, I was into sports. So I was watching football films and baseball and basketball films. One of the football films I watched was Varsity Blues. It came out in 1999. And in the movie, had some well-renowned actors that in there, like Scott Caan. He was in Hawaii Five-O. Paul Walker, the late great Paul Walker, who was in the Fast and Furious films. Ali Larter, who was in the Resident Evil films. And John Voight, who was in the first ever Mission Impossible film. And some of the National Treasure films, I think. But James Van Der Beek was in there. And he was the backup quarterback, Johnny Moxon, who was, as I just said, the backup quarterback to Lance Harbor, who was played by Paul Walker, who was the star quarterback. And I just loved the journey that Johnny Moxon had in that film, because Lance Harbor was the big star quarterback, and then John Voight's head coach, Bud Kilmer, was, this I would say like a just tough as nails coach that people just hated because he was like trying to talk down to you, trying to, ruin your hopes, ruin your dreams. All he cared about was winning his next district title and not cared about the players whatsoever. And Johnny Moxon didn't have any of it. Didn't want none of it. He had other big dreams. He wanted to go to Brown University. He had his own girlfriend, and when Lance Harbor went down with that, I assume it was a broken ankle or something, Moxon gets thrown into the spotlight. He ends up leading him to success, but once again, Bud Kilmer was chirping in his ear, trying to do this, trying to do that. And then it ultimately led to the district title game where Bud Kilmer ended up getting, well, basically shunned, like cast off by the players in silence because the players did not want to walk out with him because he was being, bad. He was treating the players poorly. So Moxon ends up having, in my opinion, one of the best movie monologues that a character has ever had in cinema, where he's talking about being heroes. And that resonated with me because it felt like, man, like, you want to have this one moment where you could just be the hero. Like, I'm not trying to imply that I have hero complex or anything, but like, you want to have this one moment where like you could be a hero to everyone. Do you know what I mean? Like, you want to be a hero to everyone in the world and like feel like you're a god for just this one moment and cherish it. And to do it with just people around you or people even seeing it, that means a lot to me because like throughout my entire life, I've been kind of been stuck in the background. Before YouTube, I've been stuck in the background behind, all these popular high school football players and these cheerleaders and all these guys who are held in high regard by, teachers and students and classmates. But like I flew under the radar, but at the time I was shy. I didn't know how to handle it. And sure, people knew who I was, but like I wasn't like, the most well-renowned person in the entire school or anything like that. I was just, a background guy that people just like, hey, Keanu, this is the guy who, wears all the jerseys and all that stuff. Like, I mean, that's great and all, but like, do they know about my success? I was a fast kid back in elementary school, but I wasn't a fast kid in Ferrucci or Emerald Ridge because, like, at the end of the day, like, what come on, like, the pandemic kind of ruined things, and then I got lazy, and I kind of lost passion in the middle of it because I didn't know what to do with myself because my grades were garbage and all that. And when I think of that monologue that Moxon did or James Van Der Beek did in Varsity Blues, it made me feel, man, like, what could have been. Like, what could have been. Now, I don't want to focus on what ifs because if you focus on what ifs, it's not going to lead to anything. So here's what I'll say. That monologue was, in my opinion, the most important monologue I've ever heard in my entire life. The most important in my entire life because I felt inspired. I felt like the words really inspired me. Like, before this game started, Coach Kilmer says, 48 minutes for the next 48 years of your lives. And then he ends up going, we're going to play the next 24 minutes for the next 24 minutes. It's like, you're not playing for the future. You're playing for now. You're playing for in the moment. You got this amount of time left. Just make the most out of it. You're playing for the moment. You're playing for now. And it resonated with me. And then, like, when you see the trailers and you hear the music, like, there goes my hero by Foo Fighters, and it's playing in the background, it's like, my God, man, like, you just feel like a kid. Like, you feel it's old school. And we live in a world where it's not old school anymore. We live in a world where it's all about, how am I supposed to say it? Like, we live in a world where it's like, we don't get those old school type of musics where we're talking about, real life stuff or authenticity or love. We're just talking about what money and fakes, basically fake artificial things. And I just it just doesn't make any sense. When it was authentic and there was no internet, like no YouTube, we were speaking from the hearts. And I felt like and I know it's a movie, it's a movie, but like it's like it's like a person is like telling you like, hey, if you go out there and be a hero, you will be remembered forever. So Moxon does the speech. He leads the players out on the field, and they end up winning the district title. And they did it together, and the people get to see it. They got to be heroes for one night, and it that inspired me in a way where I want to be like that. I remember my senior year in high school, I was in my acting class. I had done 2 years in acting, and I did, and going into it, I thought, oh, I was going to do terrible and all that stuff. I ended up doing pretty well, and I realized, man, I have so much potential that I just need to maximize, even with the limitations that I have. And there was a point in my senior year, like at the beginning of April, of last year, where we were doing like a monologue and all that stuff, and lighting and production was a big deal for it. And the monologue I chose to do was the monologue I just mentioned, Varsity Blues, the monologue of Let's Be Heroes. And I wanted to pour all my passion in the monologue, pour my soul into it, because I wanted to feel like, man, what would it feel like if I was in that moment, if I was in Mox's shoes and made it my own. Shout out to Gunnar, of course, for the lighting. I kind of effed up the monologue near the end because I had to read the paper because I was like, what the hell am I doing? And I had to improvise. I had to improvise like, man, like I'm a head coach and all that stuff all of a sudden. But like I messed up. I couldn't memorize it. But like at the end of the speech, people were like, whoa, they were cheering because like, man, like I felt inspired by that speech. So I was like, I did my job, but it wasn't like perfect. You want to aim for perfect, of course, but like because I felt like I made a disservice to this monologue. I made a disservice to a monologue that is a monologue that people should watch over and over again for many years to come because it's inspiring. So and after this movie came out, I mean, James Van Der Beek, he did a few more seasons of Dawson's Creek, and he kind of flew under the radar. And maybe he wanted to be flown under the radar because he felt satisfied with his life. And the only notable things I've seen him in since was Dancing with the Stars, and he did pretty well. And he was recently on The Masked Singer. And I know he went through some health conditions, some type of form of cancer, and he's been a fighter. He was a fighter for almost like 5 years, and unfortunately he succumbed to it like a couple of weeks ago at the age of 48 years old, man. And I would have loved to meet James Van Der Beek because in my opinion James is I think he's from face value, I think he's a great human being. I honestly think he's a great husband, a great father, and it would just be really nice to just pick his brain about like the secrets to acting. Like, how do you become the best actor in the game? Because the only teacher that I've had, teach me about acting was, of course, Mr. Tavern. And I thank Mr. Tavern for, showing me the way when it comes to acting. But it would be nice to have more teachers like Tavern. And James Van Der Beek would be one of those teachers, but he's not in our lives anymore. He's in heaven and he's living peacefully. And it part of me says it sucks. It really sucks because you want to meet the people that inspired you. You want to meet the people that really made you like want to do things for once, like want you to reach out for the stars and grab them. And James, that one speech in Varsity Blues made me think, man, I could be doing so much more than what I have right now. So for that, I say thank you. I say thank you, James, because you inspired me to be the best version of myself. Even when there are days where I feel like the shittiest, you inspired me to really reach out for those goals. I mean, I was hesitant about this YouTube channel. I really was. I was hesitant about doing this YouTube channel, but I feel like your words and what you have, you know, what you have done for the industry is what has made me drive harder than ever before to make content, even with the limitations that I've had. As of right now, I'm sitting at 74 subscribers, and I started YouTube back in August of 2025, and it's February of 2026. And there are days where I feel like, man, like I'm doing decently well, but like at the same time, I feel like what if, like, am I doing something wrong? Like I need to restart over, and I don't want to restart over because all the progress that I made. And it's his words, "Let's be heroes." That your words, "Let's be heroes," that has inspired me time and time and time and time and time again to keep pushing harder and keep pushing forward all the way until I get to that big end goal, which I hope and pray is at least 500 to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Hell, maybe in a few years from now, I'll get to 100,000 or 1 million. Who knows? You have driven me to do things that I've never experienced before. If you were to ask me at this time last year where I'm at, I would tell you my grades are absolutely atrocious. I'm failing like 3 classes right now, don't have a YouTube channel, and feel lost. Like I have nothing. And it's because of your words that has made me finish my senior year strong, made me graduate high school, and start something that I honestly believe could grow into something big. And for a guy who is a huge fan of professional wrestling and football and baseball and movies and TV shows, and a huge fan, of course, of Will Smith, and just, being confident and being like proud of myself, like that's something that's something people, in my opinion, rarely get to have, because like, you know how do I say it? I mean, like, it's rare, in my opinion, to see people, all of a sudden go from shy and like not knowing what to do, and then just become like loud, proud, and confident in themselves once at the end of it. Like, at least in person, like at least in my own experience with my own family and friends, because like it's happened in movies and TV shows, and it's probably happened to real life people out there, whether it's celebrities or just real life human beings. But like in my own experience, like around friends and family, like I've never experienced someone who was like this and then turned out to be this. Like that's beautiful. And my man, you truly were one of those anchors in my life that truly like made me work for something that I never thought would ever be possible. And that this YouTube channel is literally like a vision of mine. At one point I felt like I wanted to give up. Like I really did. Like at one point, like I was seeing like 7 videos or something, and I deleted them all because I was so unsatisfied. But I put back on the grind, and then lo and behold, here I am, 600 plus videos in, and I'm nearly at 100 subscribers. So yeah, man, I rambled on a lot on this, and I hope if you're listening, James, this is a good tribute to you. Um, to James's family, I send my condolences. I hope you guys understand the legacy he left behind. I hope everyone that is watching this understands the legacy that James Van Der Beek left behind. And with that being said, that is all I have to say. Until the next episode, see ya.